T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. We've gone for main engine start. We have main engine start.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll.
Welcome to the 80s, a golden age of so many things including movies, TV shows, music, and technology. Ask anyone who grew up in any decade and they'll tell you that's when things were the best and it was just a better time to be alive.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
We can't talk about the 80s without mentioning the big lavish hair, mixtapes, and of course, Michael Jackson. Oh, so much Michael Jackson. If you were lucky enough to grow up in this decade as a kid, you probably remember the good old days of going to the movies with mom and dad and seeing some of the greatest movies that the 80s had to offer. Granted, you either don't remember seeing some of them until you moved out of your parents' house, or you were really good at sneaking into R-rated movies.
Here's Johnny!
I'm Alex Almanza, and we're taking a look at the top 10 movies that defined the 80s. Starting off with number 10, Scarface.
Pitchfork means an assassin or something. You want to tell us about it, Montana, or do you want to take a little trip to the detention center?
Brian De Palma's wildly stylized gangster epic gave Al Pacino one of his most memorable performances as cocaine kingpin Tony Montana and shocked audiences at the time with its graphic violence and drug use.
Say hello to my little friend!
In fact, during the film's initial screening, there were numerous walkouts, while Dustin Hoffman reportedly fell asleep. The film still has the power to shock even to this day. Quite a tough one to sleep through, though.
Oh, I won't go you. Oh, Christ, thank you.
Number 9, The Shining. Although it deviated quite dramatically from Stephen King's original novel, Stanley Kubrick's chilling tale of a haunted hotel is often referred to as the scariest film ever made.
I think you have some very definite ideas about what should be done with Danny, and I'd like to know what they are.
It's easy to see why Jack Nicholson's unhinged performance and Kubrick's masterful direction combining to create something that still creates discussion to this day. Weird to think that, at the time, it was nominated for 2 Razzie Awards.
Here's Johnny!
Number 8, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
The 1961 Ferrari 250 GT California. Less than 100 were made. My father spent 3 years restoring this car. It is his love, it is his passion.
It is his fault he didn't lock the garage.
In high school, all you want out of life is to have the autonomy of an adult. You don't want the problems or the responsibility, but you definitely want the chance to run off with your friends and experience life on your own terms for a little while.
They all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Starring and inspired Matthew Broderick and set during the course of one eventful Chicago afternoon, a perfect day to play hooky. It's one of John Hughes' best movies. And hey, if you don't identify with Ferris, Hughes also finds his best ever character with Cameron Fry, hero to depressives everywhere.
Space.
Holy shit.
Number 7, E.T. Extraterrestrial. Continuing what would be another banner decade, Steven Spielberg's iconic sci-fi adventure was a perfect antidote to the past alien horrors that suggested all extraterrestrials would be thirsty for blood. At the time, it surpassed Star Wars to become the highest-grossing movie ever released. A sequel called E.T. 2, Nocturnal Fears, was originally in the pipeline, but Spielberg canned it, believing that it would affect our collective memory of the original. Good move.
Phone home.
Number 6, Ghostbusters.
So they're okay. So, does anybody want to play Parcheesi? Okay, who brought the dog?
It became the most commercially successful comedies of the decade, while giving us one of the most Arrow's quotable, and yes, eventually rather annoying slogans.
Who you gonna call? We came, we saw, we kicked its ass!
Number 5, Terminator.
This is Sarah. Pick up if you're there. I'm at this place on Pico Boulevard called Tech Noir. I'm really scared.
Although audiences had already seen Austrian bodybuilder Arnold Schwarzenegger in Conan the Barbarian, it was James Cameron's low-budget sci-fi thriller which truly launched his career. It was also the first major movie for Cameron, and the innovative use of cyborgs had a huge influence on the genre from then on. It also led to one of the finest sequels man has ever witnessed.
I'll be back.
Number 4, The Goonies.
And now, the final crowning touch to this cake. Baby! Take about a spoon of cocoa.
I'm gonna throw it to you, okay?
Put it in a spread small sieve. You shake your sieve.
Whether being pursued by bloodthirsty gremlins or hobnobbing with cute extraterrestrials, the kids in Steven Spielberg's movies have always managed to appear extraordinarily real and childlike. It's one of the strengths of his films and perhaps the most saving grace in The Goonies. This cult classic stars boys next door Sean Astin and Corey Feldman as they follow a 17th century treasure map in an attempt to save their house in the Goondocks from foreclosure. And don't pretend you've forgotten the Truffle Shuffle.
Cut it out, Mom.
Number 3, Die Hard.
Welcome to the party, pal!
The inarguable action movie highlight of the 80s saw Bruce Willis fighting bad guys and spouting one-liners in his soon-to-be trademark grubby vest. Keeping things simple, we have had a maverick cop on one side and a bunch of terrorists on the other. For brutal efficiency and sheer entertainment, it's still hard to beat while the formula became endlessly copied by various action movie clones. Number 2, The Breakfast Club.
Eat my shorts.
You just bought yourself another Saturday, mister.
Crushed.
You just bought one more right there.
Well, I'm free the Saturday after that. Beyond that, I'm gonna have to check my calendar.
Good! Because it's gonna be filled. We'll keep going. You want another one? Say the word. Just say the word. Instead of going to prison, you'll come here.
Pretty much everything you know about the teen movie genre was created in one foul swoop in this seminal John Hughes classic. It influenced dozens of movies in its wake, including The Faculty, which was created as a direct homage. Number 1, Back to the Future.
Doc!
Marty, you made it!
Yeah!
Welcome to my latest experiment. This is a big one, the one I've been waiting for all my life.
Without a doubt, the Back to the Future trilogy as a whole could easily take the top 3 spots, with the exception of Back to the Future 3 being released in 1990.
Safe and sound now, back in good old 1955.
1955? You're my
My name is Lorraine. Lorraine Baines?
Yeah. But you're so thin.
Encapsulating everything that we love about 80s blockbusters, Robert Zemeckis' flawless franchise starter assembled a list of all the right ingredients. Likeable lead? Check. Eccentric mentor? Check. Groundbreaking special effects? Check. Dang, it had everything. So even though we think of perms, bubblegum, and TV aerobic instructors donning leg warmers as bright as their expressions, we know the 80s were so much more than that. The 80s were a time for blockbusters unlike any other, for music that spoke to our souls, and for video games that we still love today. Were the computers aesthetically pleasing? Sure. Were perms a good choice? Definitely not. All I know is that we will enjoy all the great things that came out of this decade, and for those of us who lived right through it, we're definitely gonna miss it.